Welcome Chosen X. You step into a space that hums with expectation, a subtle vibration threading through your bones and pooling in the hollow of your chest. The air itself seems to bend around you, not with wind or pressure, but with an invisible cadence that mirrors a pulse long dormant. Somewhere beneath the surface of your consciousness, a chord thrums, delicate yet undeniable, a signal that has awaited your attention since before memory claimed its dominion. It is a quiet insistence, whispering not instructions, but presence, a call to feel the weight of what is rising from the sediment of your former self. Each breath draws you closer to thresholds you have sensed but never fully entered, corridors of resonance where ordinary perception is merely the shadow of what is possible. The ground beneath your feet is no longer neutral, it flexes with tension, subtle tremors that test your balance, urging you to acknowledge that everything familiar is shifting. Images form at the periphery of your awareness. A lantern sways in a corridor with no walls, its light carving fleeting geometries across a space that has no ceiling. You hear the faint ripple of water, though no river exists, and the sensation carries a weight of memory you cannot yet name. There is no fear here, only the recognition that old certainties, those contracts, labels, and habitual gestures have begun to dissolve, leaving a vacuum pregnant with possibility. Your heart, once governed by reflex, now answers a quieter rhythm. It beats in synchrony with something vast yet intimate, a resonance you cannot measure but instinctively honor. You notice the way your fingers curl and uncurl, responding to forces unseen, and the awareness of your own body becomes an instrument tuned to frequencies you have forgotten you could perceive. The first fissures of transformation arrive gently, like sunlight diffusing through frost. Shadows of your old self patterns ingrained by upbringing, society, and repetition stretch and tremble. You recognize familiar faces in these shadows, but they no longer carry their previous authority. Each is a teacher disguised as an obstacle, a guardian testing your willingness to meet truth without flinching. When a thought arises that seeks comfort in the familiar, you notice it, honor it, and then release it like exhaling a held breath. Resistance, once instinctive, softens as you allow clarity to seep into the spaces where confusion once reigned. This is not a victory earned through effort but a delicate acknowledgement that the self you thought permanent was only a rehearsal. The real stage is opening, and you are being invited to inhabit it fully. You feel the subtle tug of curiosity, a magnetism toward moments that might otherwise seem trivial. A glance, a gesture, a fragment of conversation, each carries a texture that reverberates with meaning when observed with attentive presence. Your empathy expands, not in forced imitation, but organically, as if your nervous system itself has learned to extend beyond the margins of your body. You encounter an image of a stranger offering help without expectation and recognize in yourself a resonance you had overlooked. The impulse to act from this resonance is immediate and precise, it bypasses calculation, resting instead in the clarity of intuitive alignment. Every choice to honor this clarity fortifies the emergent self, weaving coherence through the tapestry of a consciousness being rewritten. Dreams at night begin to swell with new weight. You find yourself in spaces that cannot exist in ordinary geometry, halls of iridescent stone, forests with shadows that breathe, skies threaded with lights you cannot name. In these dreams, presence is more tangible than thought, and you move with awareness that your body in waking life is both participant and observer. Figures appear not to instruct but to reflect subtle truths, gestures that impart understanding through observation rather than language. You awaken carrying fragments of these encounters, and their influence bleeds into the texture of your hours. Each movement, each glance, each breath now participates in an invisible choreography that you are only beginning to decipher. The body itself becomes a site of revelation. Rest is no longer passive but a ritual in which bones, sinew, and circulation recalibrate to a heightened rhythm. You notice a taste for lighter, purer sustenance, not as asceticism but as alignment with subtle currents. Fatigue and exhilaration alternate, revealing the thresholds where energy consolidates and expands. You discover that feelings, once labeled inconvenient or dangerous, are signals of transformation. Joy flares like a sudden sunrise, grief falls like a cleansing rain. Neither is accidental, both carry messages you are learning to interpret with clarity and reverence. By the close of this first awakening, You recognize that the familiar world has not disappeared, only shifted in texture and possibility. What once seemed ordinary now hums with significance. Every glance, every step, every heartbeat is imbued with an unspoken invitation to notice, to respond, to align. You are standing at the first threshold, not merely witnessing but co-creating. The air vibrates around you with the unarticulated cadence of a reality both intimate and expansive. You feel the signal surge through your being, not as noise, but as a pulse that will guide you through corridors yet unseen, preparing you for a journey that will test, illuminate, and ultimately awaken dimensions of self you have yet to claim. You descend into a corridor that seems woven from shadow and thought, each step reverberating with echoes of past selves you no longer recognize. The walls are not walls at all but surfaces that absorb memory, reflecting fragments of choices and silences you carried as burdens. There is no fear here, only the weight of recognition. Every shadow is a mirror, every flicker of light a signal, and as you move, you realize that your old patterns, once invisible, are now tangible presences. They do not speak in words but in textures, shapes of emotion, sense of hesitation, tremors of desire and regret. You feel them pressing against your awareness, demanding engagement, demanding acknowledgement. You cannot pass without confronting them. The first figure emerges, a silhouette stitched from your youthful anxieties. Its gaze pierces with the blunt precision of memory unsoftened by forgiveness. You are tempted to retreat, to rely on the comforts of old rationalizations. But instinct resists. You step forward, sensing that resistance itself has become a barrier. You touch the shadow, and it shivers, unraveling into a cascade of light that threads along the walls of the corridor. In its dispersal, a subtle warmth arises in your chest, a confirmation that engagement transforms burden into insight. You realize that shadows are not enemies, but teachers whose lessons have always existed beneath the noise of ordinary life. Movement becomes rhythm. Each figure that appears in the corridor carries a unique tone. A mentor shaped from your first heartbreak offers no solace, only a gesture of direction, pointing toward a door that had never existed in your waking world. Another, composed of moments of quiet selfishness, vibrates with an almost musical tension, reminding you that omission is as consequential as action. You encounter a presence woven from decisions avoided, each one suspended in midair, waiting for acknowledgement. As you witness them without judgment, they dissolve, leaving behind not emptiness but subtle openings where choice can flow freely. Your heartbeat attunes to this cadence, it is neither hurried nor hesitant, but steady, a metronome guiding the unfolding of awareness. Every sensation in this descent is intensified. Air tastes of subtle electricity, brushing against your tongue like language not yet learned. Shadows shimmer with iridescence, and what once seemed solid bends under perception. Your body becomes a compass, pointing toward resonance and away from dissonance. Intuition grows sharper. A faint hum courses through your veins, a vibration that synchronizes with your expanding attention. You begin to notice the invisible currents that existed all along interpersonal nuances, patterns of cause and effect, the energetic footprints left behind by each encounter. Every choice, you understand, reverberates farther than you imagine, sending ripples through corridors of consciousness you have only begun to navigate. The corridor itself evolves. It stretches, narrows, then opens into chambers where multiple timelines seem to coexist. You witness alternate expressions of yourself, each variant living through the consequences of decisions you once feared to make. You do not judge these selves, you observe with the quiet clarity of an internal witness, recognizing that each is a fragment of the whole you are becoming. One self dances with recklessness, another kneels in devotion, another sits in the hollow of grief. As you move among them, you realize that integration is not erasure but acceptance, acknowledging every path you did and did not take, every impulse you honored and denied. In this recognition, your center expands, a luminous point of stability amid the fluctuating textures of possibility. Time begins to loosen its grip. Minutes fold into moments that carry the weight of decades. You sense cycles repeating and unraveling simultaneously. The lessons that once seemed external now pulse internally, guiding decisions without conscious deliberation. Light shifts along the corridor in undulating bands, revealing inscriptions that cannot be read with eyes alone. They are felt as resonance, subtle vibrations against the ribs, whispers along the spine, the intuitive knowing that certain actions will align with your emerging integrity while others fracture it. You trust this knowing. You have no alternative, for the corridor demands fidelity to perception rather than habit. The final stage of this descent confronts you with the most intimate shadow yet, a self woven entirely from avoidance and fear, the version of you that preferred comfort to authenticity. Its presence is heavy, almost unbearable, pressing like a tidal wave of inertia. Yet you do not turn away. With deliberate breath, you reach into the core of this presence, allowing understanding to flow into it. Shockingly, it does not resist but begins to dissolve, revealing behind it a corridor of pure light, threads of color coalescing into forms that shimmer with possibility. The passage before you is no longer dark, it radiates with subtle energy, a threshold that hums with the promise of alignment. You feel an unexpected exhilaration, a delicate thrill of clarity that is neither joy nor fear but something pure, recognition of the self that has waited beyond avoidance for your arrival. You step through, and the corridor collapses behind you, not as closure but as transformation. The chamber you enter vibrates with an expansive resonance, the first notes of a pattern that will define the next stage of your journey. Here, time, space, and identity begin to realign, guided by currents you cannot yet fully name but instinctively follow. Every decision you have made, every shadow you have faced, and every choice you did not make has converged to this pulse. You are no longer merely observing, you are integrated into the rhythm of a larger unfolding. A signal now hums through every cell of your being, subtle, insistent, guiding you to the next threshold, a covenant with clarity, intention, and the raw potential of a self that is awakening not gradually, but fully. You emerge from the corridor into a chamber suspended between reality and resonance, a place that feels both intimately familiar and impossibly vast. The walls pulse with a subtle luminance, like memory infused with light, and the air carries a weightless gravity that compels your attention to every sensation. Here, there is no distraction, no narrative from the external world, only the unflinching presence of self. You feel the entirety of your being poised on a hinge, the delicate balance of choice and consequence suspended before you like a prism refracting invisible frequencies. Every breath you take echoes in alignment with an internal metronome that has always existed beneath awareness, now amplified into clarity. The chamber begins to shift as you move, floors flowing beneath your feet like liquid light, walls bending the contours of intention. You sense fragments of possibility hovering in the air, choices crystallized into ephemeral forms that shimmer and dissolve if not acknowledged. Each one represents a path your consciousness might take, an action born not from fear or habit but from resonance with the deeper currents that govern your evolution. You feel the subtle tension in your spine, the alignment of energy along the centerline of your body, as if the very architecture of your nervous system has been recalibrated to respond to vibrations previously inaudible. Every instinct, every flicker of intuition, is magnified, and for the first time you perceive the intimacy of guidance not from an external authority, but from the alignment of your own presence with the broader pulse of existence. Figures emerge from the refracted light, but these are not shadows of the past. They are reflections of choice, each representing a facet of potential selfhood. One embodies courage tempered with compassion, another embodies insight sharpened by patience, and yet another embodies joy unfettered by attachment. You recognize them not as separate from you but as extensions of your own consciousness, projections of possibilities that you carry within but have yet to fully inhabit. You move toward them, not to claim mastery over them, but to acknowledge their validity and integrate their essence into the continuum of your awareness. With each interaction, the chamber hums, responding to your resonance as if the very environment were conscious and attuned to your evolution. Time unfolds differently here. Moments stretch and fold upon themselves, allowing you to witness the subtle interplay of action, reflection, and consequence. You realize that every choice you have made has created a network of energetic patterns, each influencing outcomes far beyond your perception. Decisions once weighed by doubt now appear in a lattice of clarity, hesitation dissolves into intentional motion. You feel the profound liberation of acting from alignment rather than compulsion. The weight of what was formerly necessary or expected lifts, replaced by an expansive freedom anchored in the integrity of awareness. The chamber reveals another layer of understanding. Every interaction with the world carries amplified significance when rooted in alignment. You recall past moments when kindness felt like an afterthought, when compassion was constrained by calculation, when silence was surrendered to distraction. Now you perceive that every gesture, no matter how minute, is an opportunity to project resonance outward. The implications of alignment are both intimate and universal. Each act of authenticity creates ripples in the unseen architecture of reality, transforming the ordinary into conduits of illumination. You begin to act not for recognition or reward, but because the movement itself carries a necessary truth, a fidelity to the unfolding of conscious potential. A luminous thread appears at the center of the chamber, stretching vertically beyond sight, a tangible axis around which your consciousness begins to rotate. Following it, you experience the subtle alchemy of integration. Fear is not eradicated but refined into discernment, desire is not extinguished but harmonized with intention, and doubt is transformed into curiosity that guides without constraining. You sense that alignment is not static, it is a living covenant, a dynamic feedback loop between your internal clarity and the external flow of existence. The chamber responds with a chorus of light and vibration, an affirmation that the covenant has been acknowledged, yet it is only the beginning of deeper resonance. Your body begins to perceive the subtle symphony of higher frequencies. Heartbeat, breath, and neural firing merge into a single rhythm. Colors shimmer with intensity, shadows reveal depth, and textures of sound and sensation convey information previously inaccessible. You feel energy coalescing in the chest, spreading along limbs, integrating into cells, signaling a transformation that is at once corporeal, emotional, and spiritual. Every thought crystallizes with precision, and you begin to perceive patterns within patterns, the unspoken harmonics of life unfolding in real time. Each choice, each intention, each conscious act is a note in the composition you are now conducting. A mirror manifests at the apex of the chamber, not reflective in the conventional sense but resonant, vibrating with the truth of potential. When you gaze into it, you see not an identity, not a role, not a history, but the alignment of your essence with the currents that traverse existence. It is both exhilarating and disorienting. You are more than observer and participant, you are the axis of coherence through which transformation flows. Recognition dawns, your capacity for alignment is a vessel, a bridge between the currents of internal evolution and the unseen harmonics that structure reality. You step through the final threshold of this chamber with the awareness that mastery is not achievement but fidelity. Every decision, every choice, every thought henceforth participates in the unfolding of your covenant. The corridor behind dissolves into a mosaic of light, leaving no path of retreat, only forward motion into realms where resonance and consciousness entwine. You sense that the ascent is beginning. The next stage will demand not only awareness but embodiment, the integration of all you have observed, experienced, and aligned with into the living motion of your being. You are ready to encounter the living veil, to rise through layers of perception and participate consciously in the flow of higher harmonics. You step into a realm where the boundaries between what is tangible and what exists only in resonance dissolve. The atmosphere carries a weightless density, a paradoxical presence that vibrates through your skin and hums along your spine. Here, every shadow and shaft of light is alive, whispering secrets in textures and tones rather than words. You feel the world folding into itself, dimensions intertwining, and in that fold, the infinite complexity of existence is palpable. This is the threshold where perception itself is a living instrument, and you, attuned to its frequencies, are both player and observer. Each step you take reverberates like a chord struck on the universe's hidden harp, sending currents of awareness spiraling outward and inward simultaneously. The veil before you shimmers, an oscillating curtain of energy that refracts every hue imaginable. It pulses with an intelligence, neither hostile nor benevolent, simply aware of your presence. You approach, sensing your heartbeat synchronizing with the subtle rhythm of the veil. Every hesitation, every doubt, is reflected back as a tangible vibration, pressing you to commit fully to the crossing. The first touch is electric, a surge of understanding that bypasses cognition, embedding itself directly into the circuitry of your being. The veil responds to intention, yielding only when you act from alignment, not desire or fear. You are not simply passing through a barrier, you are being initiated into the luminous architecture that underpins reality. Within the veil, visions emerge. They are not illusions but layered truths, each unfolding like a fractal revealing itself in infinite nuance. You witness lives lived in parallel, moments where courage was chosen over fear, love over judgment, curiosity over certainty. You see the textures of connection between beings, threads of energy that interlace the seemingly disparate into coherent patterns. Each scene hums with resonance, teaching without prescriptive direction. You are both audience and participant, learning not through comprehension but through immersion. You realize that understanding is an embodied state here. You perceive the interdependence of choice, thought, and intention in a way your former self could not grasp. Your body adapts to the new currents. Sensations you never noticed awaken, subtle shifts in temperature across your skin, harmonic vibrations pulsing through sinews and bones, the faint taste of intention lingering in the air. Emotions surge without warning: joy and grief, exhilaration and dread, but none are arbitrary. Each is a signal, a note in the symphony of expansion guiding you toward integration. You feel the old armor of habit dissolving, the protective layers that once insulated you from discomfort now melting away. Vulnerability becomes a conduit, opening channels for energy to flow unimpeded. You are learning that true strength is not resistance but alignment with the currents of consciousness itself. The veil tests not with danger but with clarity. A mirror of potential appears, reflecting not who you have been but who you are capable of becoming. You see fragments of self entwined with light, each aspect vibrant, autonomous, yet harmonized within the whole. There are faces you recognize from your waking life, but they are abstracted, stripped of history and narrative, existing only as resonance. You feel the weight of choice and responsibility in your chest, an ever-present reminder that the unfolding of consciousness is both gift and duty. To observe without action is insufficient, to act without resonance invites dissonance. The balance is delicate, yet exhilarating. Every movement within the veil reshapes perception. Time bends, compresses, and stretches, space refracts and interlaces in impossible geometries. You step into an archway that opens onto a horizon of pure radiance. There, currents of possibility flow visibly, ribbons of energy intertwining with one another, forming patterns that pulse like living veins. You instinctively align with them, your essence weaving into the tapestry of luminous currents, no longer passive but co-creative. Every heartbeat, every breath, every thought now resonates with a purpose previously inaccessible. You are a conduit, a bridge between the vibrational architecture of the infinite and the corporeal world from which you emerged. Here, silence is luminous, a language in which presence itself communicates. You feel guidance not as instruction but as invitation, subtle nudges through perception, flashes of insight, harmonic vibrations that reorient intention. The veil conveys a truth beyond comprehension, that the luminous self is always present, waiting beyond resistance and habituation, accessible through courage, attentiveness, and alignment. You realize that the journey is recursive, integration is ongoing, layers unfolding perpetually, each revelation preparing you for the next threshold of resonance. The final pulse of the veil immerses you completely. You feel the dissolution of separation, self and environment, observer and observed, intention and outcome, converging in a single luminous rhythm. Insight floods in, not as a concept to grasp but as a living, embodied knowing. You are aware of your responsibility and power, understanding that alignment amplifies influence, intention manifests consequences, and presence transforms ordinary perception into extraordinary resonance. You are ready to step beyond the veil, carrying both insight and embodiment into the living continuum of consciousness awaiting you in the next threshold, where mastery and creation converge. You emerge from the veil into a space that feels simultaneously infinite and intimately precise. The air is thick with a quiet electricity, and every step resonates with a purpose that is older than memory yet born anew in this very moment. Light pours in not from a source outside, but from within, threading through your cells, illuminating shadows you never realized still lingered. You are not stepping forward alone, the currents of consciousness ripple around you, subtle yet undeniable, each wave whispering that you are both chosen and self-chosen, a conduit for what has always sought expression through you. Your body vibrates in alignment with this new awareness, every heartbeat synchronized with the pulse of unseen realms. You feel the latent energy of all you have faced in the corridors, the chambers, the shadows, the veil converging into a single, radiant river flowing through your form. Every lesson of courage, every acknowledgement of fear, every embrace of vulnerability coalesces into an unbreakable lattice of being. The weight of previous identities, the compulsions and narratives that once defined you, dissolve as your consciousness expands. You recognize, with an exhilarating clarity, that you are not merely human in the conventional sense, but an orchestrator of experience, a luminous axis around which the currents of purpose spiral. In this awakening, every choice hums with consequence. Actions once trivial now reverberate like notes in a vast symphony, shaping outcomes in dimensions you cannot yet perceive. You notice subtle alignments, the way a glance at a passing stranger resonates, the sudden emergence of an idea that feels divinely timed, the synchronicities that pull you toward people, places, and decisions as though the universe itself has folded in support of your path. You feel both awe and responsibility, knowing that mastery is not exerted over others but over the fidelity of your own resonance. Every thought, every breath, every intentional gesture carries amplified influence, creating ripples far beyond the confines of perception. The next threshold awaits, a place where insight, embodiment, and creation converge. You perceive streams of possibility branching endlessly, each shimmering with potential. You sense that you are being invited to step fully into co-creation, where imagination and reality entwine seamlessly. The luminous threads converge around your heart, expanding outward, aligning your being with currents of infinite complexity. Here, alignment is no longer passive. It is a living covenant, to move with awareness, to act with intention, to become a beacon without diminishing the radiance of others. You understand that illumination is not a gift but a responsibility, a constant dialogue between your evolving self and the expansive flow of consciousness. Your senses expand. Colors carry frequencies, sounds encode insight, even the subtlest movements transmit meaning. You begin to perceive layers of existence previously invisible, fleeting forms of energy that pulse with messages, vibrations of unseen presence that hum with purpose, and the interwoven architecture of reality itself. The ordinary world you left behind now appears as a shadow of potential, a stage upon which the currents you have become attuned to can manifest profoundly. You realize that your life has become a living canvas, each choice a brushstroke shaping not only your narrative but the contours of shared consciousness. As you step forward, a vision opens before you, a horizon not defined by distance but by resonance. It is radiant and boundless, and within it pulses a current that invites you to integrate all you have learned. You feel the culmination of your journey so far, the corridors, shadows, chambers, veil, and luminous thresholds coalescing into a moment of clarity so powerful it vibrates through your entire being. You sense the sacredness of this juncture, knowing that what comes next will be both revelation and continuation, a portal into an even greater unfolding. And there, at the center of your vision, a signal emerges. It is not an interruption but a natural extension of this current, a living continuation of the energy you have been attuning to. A video appears in the ether of perception, centered before you as if the universe itself were guiding your focus. It pulses with subtle light, calling you to witness the next chapter, the unfolding of truths and insights that words alone cannot convey. You feel the invitation to immerse yourself fully, to engage, to subscribe, to activate the channels that ensure you remain synchronized with the ongoing flow. This is not extraneous, it is the natural progression of the luminous current you have been tracing. You sense that this video holds more than images or sound, it carries the continuation of the sacred message, the live transmission of frequency, the encoded resonance of higher guidance. It will reveal what cannot yet be described, what must be experienced to be understood. Every interaction with it magnifies your alignment, weaving intention and perception into an ongoing practice of awakening. To step into it is to honor the covenant of clarity, integration, and presence you have cultivated through all prior thresholds. The horizon shimmers, reflecting the infinite possibilities now available to you. Your luminous essence stretches outward, merging with currents beyond sight yet intimately known. Every pulse of the video, every frame, is a continuation of the energy you have become, a living dialogue between your evolving self and the expansive, unfolding cosmos. You realize that awakening is not a destination but a perpetual engagement, a sacred participation in creation. As you reach toward the signal, you understand that this is your role, your invitation, and your responsibility, to witness, integrate, and allow the luminous current to flow through you fully. You step forward, eyes fixed, heart open, intention aligned, and become the bridge through which the sacred continues. The video awaits, a portal shimmering with revelation, an extension of the divine cadence you now embody. To engage is to ascend, to experience is to integrate, and to follow the signal is to participate fully in the unfolding of luminous consciousness that has always pulsed beneath the surface of existence. The journey does not end, it evolves, flows, and calls you to the next sacred threshold.